The forest whispered secrets as twilight settled over the land. Shadows stretched long between the ancient oaks, and the wind carried the distant sound of a child's cry. Elara, a young Omega with eyes as gentle as dawn, was gathering herbs near the edge of the forest when she heard it. Her heart tightened. A child was in danger. Elara's life had always been quiet. Living on the outskirts of the kingdom, she had learned to stay invisible, to blend with the trees and rocks, unnoticed by those in power. The villagers often called her timid, but Elara knew that courage was not the absence of fear. It was acting even when the fear was loudest. And tonight, fear and urgency battled in her chest. She could not ignore the cries. The sound led her deeper into the forest, where the trees grew thick and dark, and the path disappeared beneath fallen leaves. A group of rough men, rogues by their appearance, were surrounding a small boy. Their shadows loomed large under the fading light, and their weapons glinted with menace. The child struggled, small fists punching at air, eyes wide with terror. Elara's pulse raced. She was no warrior, no fighter of battles, yet she could not let this happen. Thinking quickly, she noticed a fallen branch nearby. With a deep breath, she stepped from behind a tree and swung it with all her might. The branch cracked against a rogue's shoulder, sending him stumbling. The others turned, startled by her sudden attack. "You leave him alone," she shouted, voice trembling but strong. The rogues laughed, thinking her a harmless girl. But Elara did not run. She lunged, using the branch as both shield and weapon, buying the boy precious seconds. Then, seeing a narrow path between the trees, she grabbed the child's hand and pulled him toward safety. Leaves tore at their clothes, thorns scratched their skin. Yet they ran, hearts pounding, lungs burning. Finally, they reached a small clearing near a stream. Elara knelt beside the boy, checking for injuries. His small body trembled, but he was alive. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Elara smiled softly. "You're safe now. I won't let anyone hurt you." The boy's name was Kael. He was not just any child. He was the lost son of the Alpha King, a boy hidden from enemies who wanted to seize power in the kingdom. Kael had been traveling in secret, unaware of the danger that followed him. And now, through fate, he had found Elara. They camped near the stream, and as darkness fell, the forest seemed to grow alive. Owls hooted from above, and the rustle of leaves sounded like whispers. Kael leaned against her, seeking comfort. Elara, though exhausted, felt a strange warmth spread through her chest. She had rescued him, yes, but more than that. She felt a connection she could not name, yet danger was not far. Elara knew the rogues would return or report the child's whereabouts. She needed a plan. Using her knowledge of the forest, she found a hollow behind a cluster of ferns and made a small shelter. They would rest there for the night, hidden from prying eyes. As she tended Kael's minor wounds, she noticed something strange, a faint glow in the boy's eyes whenever he looked at her. It was as if he trusted her instinctively, without knowing why, and in that moment, Elara felt a shift in herself. She had always thought of herself as weak, a simple Omega living in a harsh world, but now she felt capable, strong, alive. The night deepened, and the forest grew silent, except for the gentle rush of the stream. Elara sat beside Kael, watching him sleep. She reflected on her life. Days filled with solitude, evenings spent foraging or tending a small garden, the villagers never noticing her kindness, never recognizing her courage. Yet tonight, she had done something remarkable. She had saved a life that mattered, not just any life, but one that could change the kingdom. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sound, a twig snapping, careful but deliberate. Elara's body tensed. Someone was approaching. She held Kael close, whispering, "Stay quiet, no matter what." From the shadows, a figure emerged. A guard? Or another rogue? Alara could not tell. The figure moved with purpose, and her heart sank. The boy stirred, sensing her fear, and she clenched her jaw, determined to protect him. "Come out," a voice called softly but firmly. "I mean no harm." Alara stepped forward, revealing herself. The man or woman who emerged from the darkness was not a threat, but a messenger. He wore the sigil of the Alpha King on his chest and carried a message of urgency. The missing prince had been found, or so they hoped, but Alara's involvement was unknown. Alara listened, heart pounding, as the messenger spoke of the kingdom, the king, and the boy's importance. She realized that the child she had saved was not just anyone. He was royalty, heir to a throne she had only heard of in distant stories. Her mind raced. She had no desire for recognition, no wish for reward. She had acted out of compassion, and yet, the consequences of her actions were about to reach far beyond the forest. When dawn broke, Alara led the boy back toward the edge of the forest, where the royal guards were waiting. Their presence was both comforting and terrifying. The boy ran to them, but then paused, looking back at Alara with wide, trusting eyes. You saved me," he said. Alara nodded, forcing a small smile. "I did what I had to." The guards looked at her with suspicion at first, but the boy's words carried weight. "She saved me," he exclaimed. "She is brave. She is good." The captain of the guards stepped forward, studying her. "Who are you?" he asked. Alara hesitated. She was just an Omega, a simple girl from the woods. She had no titles, no claim to greatness. I am Alara," she said softly. "I live in the forest." The captain exchanged a glance with the others, then nodded. "You have done a service to the kingdom, Alara. The Alpha King will want to know of your deeds." Ilara's stomach tightened. The Alpha King. She had heard stories of him strong, commanding, and feared by many. The thought of standing before him filled her with a mixture of awe and dread, and yet, she knew she could not shy away from the truth. She had saved the prince, and that could not be ignored. As they traveled toward the citadel, Alara kept a close eye on the boy. Kael was quiet now, but she could sense his curiosity and his trust in her. In that bond, she felt something stir deep within her. A connection that was unexpected, profound, and yet fragile. The journey was tense. Every shadow seemed to move with purpose. Every rustle of leaves, a potential threat. Alara's senses were sharp. She noticed every detail, every sound. She protected Kael as if he were a part of herself. And in doing so, she discovered a part of herself she had never known. The courage to stand against fear, to act decisively, and to protect what she loved, even at risk to her own safety. Finally, the citadel's walls rose before them, towering and majestic. A mixture of stone and enchanted design that seemed alive under the morning sun. Guards lined the entrance, watching the small group with careful eyes. The prince ran forward, and the captain spoke to the gatekeepers, explaining the situation. Alara followed, her heart pounding. She had saved the prince, yet she knew that her life would never be the same. She had stepped into a world of power, intrigue, and secrets far beyond her understanding. And within that world, she sensed something else, a force, unseen but present, that seemed to watch her, testing her, waiting for her next move. As the gates closed behind her, Alara took a deep breath. She had acted out of compassion, out of courage, and yet she was about to face a world that would challenge everything she knew about herself. The forest behind her faded into memory, and the citadel loomed like a promise and a warning all at once. And then, just as she stepped into the courtyard, a voice called from above, strong, commanding, and impossible to ignore. "Who is this girl who dares touch the life of my son?" Alara froze. The Alpha King had arrived, and her simple life, her quiet days in the forest, had just ended. Cliffhanger. As the Alpha King's gaze fell upon her, Ilara felt something in her chest tighten, not fear, but the spark of a destiny she had never imagined. She had saved a prince, but now she might be standing before her own future. And it was far more dangerous than she had ever dreamed. The Alpha King's citadel was immense, its towers reaching toward the sky like fingers of stone. Light glimmered off enchanted walls that shimmered with an inner magic, making the fortress appear alive. Ilara followed the guards through grand courtyards and polished halls, her heart thundering in her chest. Every step echoed like a warning, reminding her that she was now in a world far beyond her quiet forest life. Prince Kale ran ahead, laughing softly as he was greeted by familiar servants and advisors. Ilara stayed back, unsure of her place. She had only saved him, yet here she was, walking the same halls as kings and generals, aware that one misstep could destroy everything. At last, they reached the throne room. Its ceilings soared high, adorned with intricate carvings of dragons, forests, and battles fought long ago. Torches flickered, casting golden light that danced along the walls. And there, at the head of the room, stood the Alpha King, Tarion. The name itself commanded respect. His presence was magnetic, strong, imposing. Yet his eyes held a sharp intelligence that made it clear he saw everything. As his gaze fell upon Ilara, the room seemed to quiet, as if the air itself held its breath. "Step forward." Tarion's voice was both an order and an invitation. Ilara's feet felt heavy, but she obeyed, keeping her eyes on the floor. She had never been in the presence of someone so powerful, and yet, she noticed something in his expression, a flicker of curiosity, almost like recognition, though she had never met him before. "You saved my son," Tarion said, his tone controlled, but layered with weight. "Do you understand what that means?" Ilara swallowed. I only did what anyone would do. I couldn't let him be hurt." Her voice was quiet but firm. The king studied her, walking slowly around her as if measuring her every movement. "Few people act without fear of reward or fear of punishment," he said. "You acted out of compassion. That is rare." Ilara felt a flush of unease. Compassion was all she had ever known. Yet it had never brought her recognition, only solitude. Now, in this magnificent hall, her actions had brought her to the attention of a king. "Why did you come into the forest alone?" Tarion asked, circling her like a hawk. Ilara hesitated. "I heard the child cry. I could not leave him." The king paused, his expression unreadable. "Courage? Yes. Bravery. But there is more in you than you know." He leaned slightly closer, his eyes piercing. "Tell me, girl, are you truly only an Omega, or have you hidden something, even from yourself?" Ilara's stomach tightened. She did not understand what he meant, yet the intensity of his gaze made her pulse quicken. There was something in him that both frightened and fascinated her. She had never felt this before, never encountered a presence so commanding, yet so strangely inviting. "You are being tested," Tarion said finally, stepping back. "Not by me, but by fate itself. The child you saved is not merely a boy in danger. He carries the blood of our kingdom, and by saving him, you have drawn yourself into a story far greater than you imagined." Ilara's mind raced. She had always been careful to stay invisible, unnoticed, safe. Yet now, her very existence seemed woven into a tapestry of power, danger, and destiny. Over the next days, Ilara remained in the citadel, tending to Kale and learning the rhythms of royal life. She observed the courtiers, the guards, the advisors, all moving with precision and hidden agendas. It was dizzying at first, yet she noticed something strange: people treated her differently than they treated others. Respect, cautious curiosity, even deference. One evening, while helping Kale practice his lessons, she noticed a faint mark on her wrist glowing softly under the candlelight. The glow pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. She had never seen it before. Panic and wonder mixed in her chest. She tried to hide it, but Kale's sharp eyes noticed. "What is that?" he asked, tilting his head. I don't know," Ilara said, her voice barely a whisper. She traced the mark, feeling a warmth that seemed alive. "I've never had this before." The boy's smile was faint but knowing. "I think it means you are special. Like me." Word of the child's savior spread through the citadel. Some whispered about the girl with courage in her heart and mystery in her veins. Others feared her, sensing a hidden power. And one evening, Tarion summoned her privately to the inner chambers, a room lined with ancient tomes, enchanted mirrors, and the faint scent of old magic. "You are not merely the girl who saved my son," he said, eyes intense. "There is a truth I must show you." He guided her to a mirror carved from silvered crystal. When she looked, she saw herself, her simple face, her quiet eyes, and the mark glowing faintly on her wrist. But then, the reflection shifted, revealing a crown, a flowing cloak, and a symbol of the Alpha King herself. Alara stumbled back. What is this?" she whispered. "You are my daughter," Tarion said quietly, yet firmly. "Not just by blood, but by destiny. The mark is your birthright. You were hidden for your safety, raised as an Omega, away from those who would use you. Your compassion, your courage, they are the proof that you were meant for something far greater than the forest." Ilara's world tilted. All her life, she had felt small, invisible, unworthy. And now, she was royal. She was a daughter of the Alpha King, yet the knowledge came with weight expectations, responsibilities, dangers she had never imagined. I don't know if I can," she admitted, voice trembling. I am not ready for this." Tarion stepped closer, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. "You are more ready than you realize. Courage is not born from comfort, Alara. It is born from necessity, from the choices we make when everything is uncertain. You saved my son. That choice alone proves your worth." Despite his reassurance, Alara could not shake a sense of foreboding. She had been thrust into a world of power, mystery, and danger, and the mark on her wrist seemed to pulse in answer, a reminder that her bloodline carried both protection and peril. As the days passed, she learned more about her lineage, her hidden powers, and the history of the kingdom. She discovered the enemies that sought the throne, the conspiracies that wove through the court, and the role she was destined to play. Through it all, Tarion watched her not as a king watching a subject, but as a father assessing a daughter, and perhaps something more complicated stirring in his heart. One night, while the citadel slept, Alara sat near the window, overlooking the moonlit gardens. The wind carried the scent of the forest beyond the walls, and she thought of the life she had left behind, simple, quiet, safe. She missed it, but she also knew she could never return. Her life had changed forever. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the garden. Alara stiffened, her senses alert. She whispered Kale's name, then saw a figure slipping past the guards. A dark, silent threat. The assassin who had tried to reach her in the forest had found her again. Her heart raced. She wanted to run, to hide. Yet the mark on her wrist flared, a warm light spreading through her veins. It was as if the forest itself had followed her, lending strength, guiding her. She realized she could not flee. She had to face this danger, not as an Omega, but as what she truly was, a daughter of the Alpha King. A protector. A force of courage. The shadow approached the window, silent, calculating. Alara's mind raced. Then she remembered the skills she had honed in the forest: quick thinking, observation, using the environment. With a single leap, she grabbed a heavy curtain rod and braced herself. The figure lunged through the window, but Alara was ready. With a swift, precise movement, she struck, and the intruder fell back, stunned. In that moment, she felt a surge of power and confidence unlike anything she had known. She was not merely defending herself, she was protecting her son, her father's kingdom, and her own destiny. When the guards arrived, they found Alara standing tall, her breathing steady, eyes fierce. She had faced the threat alone, yet emerged unshaken. And though the intruder had escaped, she knew this was only the beginning. As she looked toward the night sky, Alara understood that her life had changed irreversibly. She was no longer just an omega of the forest. She was a daughter of kings, a protector of life, and a force the kingdom would soon depend upon. Cliffhanger. In the shadows of the citadel, unseen eyes watched her. A whisper of ancient power stirred in the air, carrying a promise and a warning. The forces that threatened her and the kingdom were gathering, and the true test of her courage, power, and heart had only just begun. The citadel was alive with tension. Whispers of betrayal moved through the halls, carried by shadows and courtiers alike. Alara, now aware of her royal blood, stood by the high windows of the inner tower, watching the moonlight spill across the gardens. She felt the weight of her destiny pressing on her shoulders. But for the first time, it did not crush her, it steeled her. She had faced fear. She had saved the prince, and she had survived the shadows that sought her. Now, she would rise to meet the trials that awaited. Prince Kale, ever curious and wise beyond his years, approached her quietly. "Alara," he whispered, "they are planning something. I overheard the guards, the rogues, and some in the court. They want to take the throne. They will come for me again." Alara nodded, her mind already racing. The forest had taught her strategy. The citadel had taught her observation. And now her bloodline taught her courage. "Then we will be ready," she said firmly. "I will protect you. I will protect the kingdom." In the days that followed, she trained. Not just in the arts of self-defense, but in diplomacy, in observation, and in the mystical powers hidden within her bloodline. Every dawn she practiced, every dusk she studied, and every night she meditated, feeling the pulse of the citadel, the whispers of the forest still alive within her. She learned to move with grace, to command presence, to be more than an omega, the hidden daughter of the Alpha King, born to protect and to lead. Tarion observed her closely. At first, he had been a commanding presence, a figure of authority and challenge. But as days passed, he began to see her not just as a girl, but as someone extraordinary. Her courage, her compassion, her ability to face danger with clear thought and unwavering heart, it fascinated him. He watched her in silence, his admiration growing, though he concealed it behind the mask of the king. One evening, as they trained in the courtyard, the air thick with tension and the scent of autumn leaves, Tarion spoke quietly. "You are unlike anyone I have ever known. You carry strength, yet never arrogance. Compassion, yet cunning. Courage, yet humility. It is remarkable." Alara's face flushed. She had expected praise for skill, but not this connection, this understanding. "I am only trying to do what is right," she said softly, though her heart thumped loudly in her chest. Tarion's eyes held hers longer than expected. In that silent moment, the bond between them shifted subtly, an unspoken recognition, not of romance yet, but of kinship, trust, and something deeper. The kingdom might see them as king and daughter, but in the quiet moments, Alara realized the connection was stronger, more human, and more profound than titles could ever explain. The first real threat came swiftly. A group of rogues, aided by conspirators within the court, breached the citadel under cover of night. Shadows moved like living things along the stone walls, and their intent was clear. They sought the prince, and through him, the throne. Alara, alerted by the faint glimmer of her mark, rose from her room with Kale beside her. Her heartbeat was steady. Her fear was no longer paralysis, but focus. She had prepared for this. She moved through the halls, silent and swift, guiding Kale to safety, while confronting the intruders with cunning and courage. The rogues were skilled, but Alara's mind was sharper. She led them into corridors where the shadows played in her favor, into traps she had noticed and memorized. Every step, every movement, was calculated. The children's corridors, secret passages, and enchanted hallways of the citadel were her allies. Finally, in the grand hall, she confronted the leader of the rogue band. He was large, brutish, confident in his power. But Alara stood firm, her wrist glowing faintly with her hidden mark. "You will not harm him," she said, voice clear and unshakable. The rogue laughed. "And who will stop me, little girl?" Alara smiled, not with arrogance, but with certainty. "I will." With a swift motion, she moved as though guided by the forest itself. She dodged his attacks, used her momentum and environment, and finally, trapped him against the wall. The light of her mark flared, a warmth that seemed to push the darkness back. The rogue fell to his knees, overwhelmed not by brute force, but by the quiet, unyielding strength of someone who knew they were fighting for life, for justice, for destiny. Tarian arrived just as the last of the intruders were secured. His eyes widened, a mix of pride and awe in his expression. He stepped forward, placing a hand on Alara's shoulder. "You have exceeded even my expectations," he said quietly. Alara met his gaze. "I only did what I had to," she replied. But inside, she knew it was more than duty. It was the culmination of her courage, her compassion, her awakening as who she was meant to be. In the aftermath, the kingdom acknowledged her bravery. Courtiers bowed, the guards respected her, and Kael clung to her with gratitude and admiration. Yet even as the kingdom celebrated, Alara felt the pull of something greater, a destiny still unfolding, mysteries yet to be revealed. In the quiet moments, she and Tarian spoke privately. They shared stories of fear and hope, of strength and regret, of the burdens they carried. The king, whose life had been defined by power and responsibility, found solace in her presence. And Alara, who had once felt invisible and insignificant, discovered that her courage and compassion could touch even the most formidable of hearts. One night, as the moon bathed the citadel in silver light, Tarian approached her in the garden. "Alara," he said softly, "you have changed more than the kingdom tonight. You have changed me. I see in you not only my daughter, but someone whose spirit I trust beyond all others." Ilara's heart thumped. She did not fully understand the depth of his meaning, yet she felt it a bond of respect, admiration, and unspoken connection that went beyond words. "I only did what I could," she said, though her voice carried a new confidence. Tarian smiled, a rare softness in his eyes, and yet, it was more than enough. "You are more than an Omega. You are the daughter of kings, and the light that guides this kingdom through darkness." But even in this moment of triumph, a shadow lingered. In the distance, beyond the high walls, a force watched. It had not been defeated, only delayed. Ancient and cunning, it waited, whispering through the night, hinting that the battles to come would test Alara, Kael, and Tarian in ways they could not yet imagine. Alara stood, her mark glowing faintly, feeling the pulse of destiny within her. She had faced fear, saved the prince, and discovered her true identity. She had gained strength, courage, and respect. Yet she knew the story was far from over. The kingdom was safe for now, but she had glimpsed the edge of a larger struggle, one that would demand more than skill or bravery. It would demand heart, wisdom, and the bonds forged in trust and compassion. As dawn broke over the citadel, painting the towers with gold, Alara looked at the prince and then at Tarian. She realized that life, once simple and quiet in the forest, had become something greater, complex, dangerous, and filled with promise. She was no longer merely Ilara the Omega. She was Ilara the Protector, Ilara the daughter of kings, and perhaps in time, Ilara whose heart could bridge the gap between courage and love. Cliffhanger. High above, in the shadowed towers of the citadel, a figure cloaked in darkness watched her. The whisper of ancient power filled the air, carrying a warning. Ilara's journey had only just begun. A greater threat, older than the kingdom itself, stirred, and the choices she would make next could shape the fate of all she loved.